Hello, everybody. So, I've been thinking about making a video like this for a while about the kind of subject's going to be Lorne's relationship with alcohol and all our relationships with alcohol. These kind of videos, as people probably know, I've been kind of when I carry on making these videos, I've always got to I always wrestle with my conscience, really, because I don't want to. People get a little bit of entertainment out of it. I get a little bit of fun, but I also don't want to just do videos just for the sake of berating someone. Do you know what I mean? It's like, so I'm trying to do something a little bit more positive with it. So in other words, on this, I do the videos about the lawsuits where I just kind of rip into him and stuff, and it's not the highest thing a person can do, but we're having a bit of fun. So with these, I'm just trying to get trying to, because one of the things that people get out of the Lorne saga is thank God you're not Lorne and all that kind of stuff. It's not the wisest kind of way to live, but it can give you a bit of perspective on your life, and when you're going through a bit of shit, you go, oh fucking hell, it's not that bad. It's one of the aspects of all this that we find interesting, is we can get so much out of it from various aspects, like study into kind of human behaviour and whatnot. So with this one, the kind of alcohol thing is something that's, the reason I thought I'd do this is because it's become quite prevalent in my life. I never thought I'd utter these words, but I very rarely drink anymore. Now, if you look at Lorne's kind of the chat log and his life, it's heavily influenced by alcohol. I would suggest that he's got a drink. Well, he has got a drink problem. There's no doubt about that. As millions of people do in the world. It's the untold. Well, not untold, but it's kind of something that it's bizarre if you think about alcohol and the misery and the suffering that it causes people. What kind of positive aspects is there for it? You can have a bit of fun, there's no doubt about that. I've had some fucking amazing times, with my friends. If I think back to those times, though, they weren't the best times, the best moments I've had in my life. The most profound moments and the most enjoyable are always ones without alcohol. If you think back to times in your life, the things that are most memorable, if you're really honest about it, I would suggest none of them are when you were intoxicated. There's certainly moments when I can look back and think, my, what an amazing time that was. The thing is, in England, there's a big drinking culture. When I was like 16, I started hanging around, out on streets, drinking on the streets and stuff like that, as most people do that age. And it's the norm. It's the social norm of what kids do. It's an enjoyable experience. I didn't realise, and it's bizarre that I've only just really started to realise this, is that really from the ages of 18 onwards, no, actually I'd say early 20s really, I had a drink problem. And I didn't realise it because most people had the same problem. I'd say about 10 years ago, I would go out every night, at the weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I would go out getting leathered with my mates. Sometimes I'd have a great time, sometimes I wouldn't. But generally, I'd be feeling shit most of the time because I'd be hungover, and I was too stupid and naive to understand the effects that it would have on me. And it was just the norm. You go out with people and you drink, and the amount of money I have spent is phenomenal. Now, if you have a look at kind of what Lorne, what's prevalent in Lorne's life through the drinking and whatnot is that when he was in Maine, when he moved to Nashville, he was drinking whilst he was involved in the chat log, as we know, and it sounds like Lorne's always been quite a big drinker. I would suggest he's drinking even more now for obvious reasons about escaping reality. You know the picture you can see now. For somebody in his position, what else is he going to do? He's even said it in some of the later calls. He can't face up to reality. So he chooses to avoid it by drinking. But what are the kind of negative side effects of that for him? You know, all the things that are really worthwhile in life are stuff that you've got to really work hard for. Like even, you know, anything really. You've really got to go through hell in a way. To get something truly meaningful, whether it's self-development or a meaningful job. There are people out there with jobs. They're earning a lot of money, and the jobs really don't contribute anything to society. You know, there's people in Wall Street and stuff that are, you know, that have worked hard to some degree. You know, that's not to judge anybody. The world's the way it is for a reason. But there are some people that are in positions where they earn a lot of money. They're not doing any good in this world. They're probably contributing in a negative way. That's not meaningful. You know, they're not really... Are they contributing anything positive? Some people are. Some people don't. But to get to where a lot of people have got, they've had to lie and scheme and manipulate and cheat, and then they get the money and whatnot, and then they think they've made it, and then they realise, oh shit, you know. But with regard to your own life and things like that, and Lorne's situation, if he wanted to get somewhere, if he wants to, he's in a difficult, very, very difficult position now. Put aside the fact that, you know, clearly he does deserve to be where he is because it's choices he's made. There is a certain amount of neurotic kind of tendencies that Lorne's got because of the difficult background that he's made. But the challenge of life for him is to overcome that, to strive beyond it. It's fucking difficult. Like, I've got nowhere near the amount of neurotic tendencies that Lorne's got, but I've got issues from my past that I need to work on every day. And it's tough to do it the right way without drink, you know, which is what I'm doing now. Lorne can't. Now, if you think about his position, you know, being on the RSO list, not having many friends, he's got like Tony and Wendy who take the piss out of him, you know, literally. You know, they're always nicking his beer. I would suggest, from what I've heard, they're not really true friends. Lorne knows this, but he needs to be around people. It doesn't really matter what effect they're having on him. And it's the same kind of, really, like for people that are in relationships that they know that are bad for them. But yet they'll stick around because they're afraid of being lonely, or they've got low self-esteem or something like that. The easiest thing to do, we've all been, well, I mean, I've been in that situation before. You know, you're in that situation and you're afraid of that feeling of loneliness, but it's something, and you know, fear of the unknown. Where's my next relationship going to come from, or how long am I going to be on my own? And to face up to that is very difficult. But like I've said, the worthwhile things are the ones that are difficult. Everything that's worthwhile seems to be counterintuitive, doesn't it? Everything's counterintuitive that is worthwhile. The easiest thing for Lorne, like I said, it's going around to Tony and Wendy's, getting drunk, forgetting his problems and behaving like a moron. And then what's another consequence of that is that he gets into his car and he drink drives. Now that's another element of alcohol and the kind of negative effects it has on people's life. Most people don't do that, but obviously people die. And I'm not trying to preach, because it would be ridiculous to come on here and say, oh, fucking alcohol's evil, because people die. People die from all kinds of things. But it's... Alcohol is such a strange thing that it does destroy lives health-wise. But with regard to drink driving, it's a decision that I was talking to someone about this, and it's difficult to grasp why someone would do that. But there's a lot of different reasons. It's like you could go down the road, you drink drive, you're evil. I know of people that I consider alright people that have done it. I must admit I thought less of them when I realised that. But alcohol does strange fucking things to your brain. There's a fantastic book called Alcohol Explained by William Porter. I'll try and bring the picture up here. There you go. That's fantastic. If you want to read of that, it basically says that the psychological effects that it has on you it's not really you anymore. It brings out the kind of shit that's inside in some cases. It depends on the people that you're hanging around with. It generally turns you into a arsehole, really, if you think about it. Have you ever been out with a group of people and you're not drinking, and you realise just how fucking annoying people's behaviour is when they're not drinking? You know what I mean? In fact, let's I can't do a video without mentioning The Simpsons. Let's have a look at a funny clip, shall we? To try and highlight what I'm saying.
I've been wanting to tell you all for years, but I never had the nerve.
I don't know you. My wife and your wife are friends. We met just 3 hours ago.
You stink! You and your whole lousy operation stinks! I quit!
I quit. Do you know what I mean? I'll have to stop that because it's like I'll get a copyright strike. But that just highlights what it does to us. Talking, just completely losing grip on reality. And it's so like... It can have such a negative influence on your behaviour and your life. And like, the point I was making with regard to Lorne at the minute, which I've got a little sidetracked on, is if he wants to really become truly better, he'd have to quit drinking completely. He can't handle it, and it's ruining things. You know, it's distorting his view of the world. It's taking up all his money to do something a bit more productive. He's hanging around with bad people. You know, it affects your health. So what would, if he quit drinking, he'd have to face up to his past and everything that he's done, and it would be excruciating, just torturous, absolutely torturous. I've been there, and like when I was going through a particularly bad time about a few years ago. It was the end of a relationship. It was pretty messy. You know, there was all sorts of stuff. You know, as we've all been there. You know, I took it pretty bad, and I had like a family, and then didn't. So I was like, shit, what do I do now? I was like sat at home thinking, fuck, and it was just too much for me to bear. So I used to go and drink, and there's a local bar round the corner. It's a relatively alright bar. I don't know what the fuck that means, but I suppose what I mean is it's not... actually, now that I think about it, it's a fucking shithole. But, anyway, so the only thing... I used to come home, I used to sit there and look around and go, shit, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I was like panicking. I couldn't call on my mates every day or my family. So what did I do? The easiest solution for me, rather than face up to that pain of everything that I was going through, was go to the bar. And then I'd have one drink, and everything wouldn't be as bad, because what it does is it slows down your thought processes. What I'll do, I'll just read an extract from this book that you've got on the screen, right? That you can see on the screen. I read this book. I read this about a year ago, and I think this is really what pushed me into stop me drinking. Because it really highlighted things in a way that I'd not really thought about before. You know, because like I said, it's socially acceptable to drink and whatnot. The page in the book says, every alcoholic drink any human being has ever drunk has caused a feeling of relaxation followed by a corresponding feeling of anxiety. One drink will cause a very minor and almost unnoticeable feeling of relaxation, then anxiety, particularly if we are otherwise occupied at the time, such as if we are socialising or sleeping. Another drink will relieve that minor feeling of anxiety in addition to any other anxiety we may happen to be feeling at that time. This may or may not register on your conscious mind, but it will pass through your subconscious mind. It will pass through your subconscious mind without making an impact the first, second, or third, but the repetition will eventually be marked by your subconscious mind, which will access the data and form conclusions. Are you with me so far? And the conclusion will be this: that an alcoholic drink will relieve anxiety and depression. And over the days, weeks, months, and years, this message will become more and more reinforced in your subconscious mind until every time you suffer from any stress or anxiety, your mind will trigger the instinctive thought that you need a drink. So, like and that becomes the addiction. And what used to happen to me was I used to cut, not luckily for me at the time, I was doing a job where I did shifts. So it wasn't a nightly thing. I think if it was, I would have been fucked. Life seems to throw certain things at you at certain times to help you. And I was like, I'd do like 3 early shifts, so and then I'd work evenings. And when I was working evenings or a night shift, I didn't have time to, sit at home and worry about what I'd lost. But when I was working like a day shift or I had a day off or something, I couldn't cope. In the evenings, I just couldn't cope. So I used to go to the pub, and I used to, I used to enjoy it. I'd think back, and I've had some enjoyable times, but you know what? And forgive me if it sounds judgmental, but I've realised that most of the people that are in bars are very boring people. The ones that go there regularly are very boring. They're in there for a reason. If you're drinking regularly, one of the locals, I'd go in there and I'd talk to the people behind the bar and, have a bit of a chat with them. And then another, some of the people that I watch the local sports team with are going. And I'd wait for them to come in, and there's like a little clique. And it was all bullshit conversations, gossiping about people, and we'd talk about the same, we'd talk about our local team and the same details over and over again. We'd slag people off, make judgments about things we've no idea about, politicians, and, and the conversations are just so dull. And people will go in there. And, there's some people that go in that have got very good jobs, got families around them, got a lot more going on in their life than I've got going on. And yet, for whatever reason, that they chose to deal with the stress in life by having a drink. And they go in there and they'd offload. I mean, this is not everybody. There's one specific person that comes to mind who'd basically, all of his problems, he'd offload onto anybody that was at the bar. We all know somebody like that. You go in there and you go, you never guess what happened to me at work today, Andy. And I'm like, oh, for fuck's sake. And it was, thinking back now, I'm like, horrible. Luckily, I got out of that now. If I could have gone back, I'd have just walked off and said, excuse me. Because ultimately, I'm not there. You help people when you can, but not to your own detriment. You've got to look after yourself. You've got to be selfish and selfless at the same time. You've got to get that balance. Help people when you can. Even go out of your way to help people. but never be a punching bag for anybody. Don't allow toxic people into your life. People have got to help themselves, or you can't help them. Help someone who will help themselves, but never help anybody who won't. And you can't help somebody who won't help themselves. It's a law. You can push people, and you can give them a bit of advice. Most people won't listen to any advice you give them. They'll always make the decision they were going to make anyway. So I fell into that trap, and there were people in there who would call themselves my friend. They weren't my friend. And I'd also noticed as well that there was people there's like a whole mentality in bars. It might be different in the States, but in England, it's like a pub mentality. And every pub that you go in has a clique and a hierarchy, and people who want to it's really tribal in a way. You go in there and there's people at the top of the chain, and they try and get people on their side. It's absolutely pathetic when you look into it. It's really ridiculous, so out there. And you know, you'd have people that are just, it's my pub, you know what I mean, and I'm going to allow you into it, like little cultures, little subcultures, and little social groups. And them are the people, people that drink regularly, if they're on their own or if they're with other people. More often than not, there's a problem there. Now if you feel I'm making any unfair judgments, because I don't have all the answers, then let me know. But these are the observations that I've made. Generally, people that I've noticed that are the ones that are pretty good to be around when they're had a drink is just happy people who go out to kind of enhance the social situations and drink moderately. The ones that are in there all the time, that drink excessively, that are doing it to escape the problems, them are the ones that were the problem, and that are the issues. And I was one of those people. And do you know what? I was one of those people that used to latch onto people and tell them about the shit I was going through. Luckily, I snapped out of that because I was able to find other interests, and I have enough. Luckily, I'm lucky in a lot of ways because I had enough friends about me and enough interests and a decent job to do other things. And I sort of found teachings that helped me through that bad time, which didn't involve boring the fuck out of people or telling people about my problems, and that's what people do. Now, I can imagine Lorne in places in Nashville maybe doing that. He went to the karaoke bar and had a drink. There's nothing wrong with that. He was in the chat log with Kayla. He was ordering her around because he was drunk, and he said, I just need a beer. All that kind of stuff. He didn't have a bed, but yeah, he had money for beer. It's but what I've come to realise as well, without condemning alcohol, I'm looking at it and the way it functions in the world today, it's kind of a necessary evil. I think back to that time I went through then, and I'm not too sure if I'd have been able to cope without it, because it was kind of a necessary evil at the time. I don't think I had it in me to face up to that pain. It had to be drip fed. I had to face it in stages, and some of it, I had to have this escapism. A consequence of that was I put weight on. It was affecting work. I didn't look particularly, my skin pigmentation and all that kind of stuff wasn't good. I smelled a little bit. It's almost embarrassing to admit it, really. But of course, I got bollocked a couple of times in work. I was very lucky that I was reasonably well thought of. So I was protected in a way. You know what I mean? But it could have gone wrong. It could have gone wrong. But there's some people that they're in that situation and they can't snap out of it. They never are able to break those chains, and it's like I've said with look at Lorne before the sting. These putting his kind of tendencies, his predatory tendencies at one side. If he wasn't drinking at all, would his life have been any better? Well, you would suggest that maybe it would have been. He wouldn't have escaped from reality. He would have had a bit more money. sorted himself out a bit, maybe it's difficult to say. I would say that it's weird theorising about these things and saying what if this and what if that, because it's ridiculous really, because it didn't happen that way. So what's the point of it was meant to be? But if you look at him now, no one's going to be able to sit down with him and say, listen, you drink too much, sort yourself out. It's been said to him on the phone on some of the calls that have been released where people are saying to him, get a grip of yourself. The thing is, I have a certain degree of understanding, not sympathy for him, because everything that's happened to him is self-imposed, as we all know. But I have a level of understanding. I know why it's easier to drink than face up with the pain. The thing is, the difference with my situation, and pretty much everybody who's listening to this, if you've been through that time, is when I was drinking to escape reality and escape the pain, I wasn't putting other people at risk. He does. He's one of that minority of people that unfortunately decides to put other people at harm when he drives and does it, and I think he's still doing it, and it's I mean, it can destroy lives. You know, it's like, look at all the violence. It's a big thing in England. If you go into Manchester city centre on a Saturday night and you look at all the people that are drinking and the way that they behave, it's like the clip from Homer before. Look how much of a lovable character Homer is on that programme, and look how, you know, I know it's only a fucking cartoon and he's a two-dimensional character, but that highlights how like a lovable person can turn into a complete arsehole. We've all done it. It's like some of the things I've said and done and the behaviour I've exhibited has been ridiculous. Luckily, I'm lucky in that when I drink, I'm like a happy drunk. I'm kind of one of them that grabs hold of my mates and goes, I love you, all that kind of shit. You know what I mean? Some people who have got more sort of maybe more anger in them than I have through past life choices or whatever, they turn very angry. It's like a friend of mine who owns a couple of bars, ironically now. He is one of the nicest guys in the world when he's not had a drink. Kind, generous, understanding, very funny, very intelligent, can be very warm. You can see little things creeping to the surface, like a little bit of a vindictive, like he'll have a take the piss out of you sometimes, but you can sense there's a little bit more to it, but that's minor. But when he's had a drink, he's one of the most horrible people you could ever fucking meet, to the point where there's some kind of underlying neurotic behaviour there. I know stuff that's happened to him in the past, so I get it. But he turns to the point where I can't really be friends with him anymore because he drinks constantly, and the only social times I get with him are when he's drinking. And literally, he knows a lot about me. I might have mentioned him in previous videos before, and what he does is, because he knows a lot about me, when he's drunk, he uses those things to really hurt me. Like things about past relationships that have failed, that have really got to me, family problems, insecurities that I have, and he'll bring them to the surface and annihilate me for them. You know, we've nearly been to blows sometimes, and he does it to make himself feel better, and that's the alcohol taking over, because you lose a sense of control, and it really alters the way that you are. You're not really you anymore. Something else has taken over, and he just turns into a monster. And he's got to like, and there's a lot of people like that. This is the thing about Lornography. You've got to ask yourself, what does are you vindictive towards Lorne? Do you exact vengeance on him, hatred? Do you send him abusive things to make yourself feel better? You know, I've done it with various videos in the past where I've had a laugh at the guy and I have to stop myself, and it's okay to have a bit of fun, but it isn't the highest thing what I do with those videos. When I'm taking the piss out of his lawsuit and I'm annihilating the guy, and it's not the highest thing to do, and I know that it's kind of you know, it's like it's all very well and good for me to have a go and maybe question the people that troll him, but I have to sort of turn that upon myself. And this is, you know, I try not to sound like I'm getting on my high horse all the time and be like morally superior to anybody, because that would be fucking ridiculous. But it's just part of the journey that I am on. I have to self-reflect, and so it's important that you question yourself. And there's a lot of people, especially with alcohol, when they are. You can spot them a mile off, and you see them in the bars, and they're eyeing you up, and like they want to. Some people go out with, and I used to, especially when I was young, they'd be like, "Yeah, you're gonna back me up if it kicks off tonight." People are expecting fights. They don't necessarily want to hurt anybody, but if you go out expecting there's going to be trouble and being cautious, you'll find it. It'll find you, more to the point. So, it's an interesting topic. I've got to a point now, I only generally drink when I'm on holiday. The last time I really had a drink, I believe, it was birthday a few weeks ago. I only had a few, but I felt like shit the day after. When I'm on holiday, it's different. For whatever reason, I feel fine. Don't get hungover. I'm having a good time, and I had a drink. When I went to Cyprus recently, I was drinking every night. Went to Thailand at the beginning of the year, I was drinking every night there. You got to do the work when you get back. I think it's okay if you're in a happy place and you do it in moderation, but you've got to be aware. I really think it's important to look after yourself physically and mentally. If you're drinking regularly, you're not doing that. You're just not. It affects, if you get a chance to read the book, it affects your metabolism. Why do you eat junk food when you are drinking? Is because it affects your body has a built-in sensory mechanism, so that your body will tell you what you need. It seems to be happening with me more and more now, that when I'm not drinking. So if I need some vitamin C, I'll get a craving for orange juice, and I'll drink that orange juice or whatever. Your body's there. It's great. When you're drinking, those sensors get dulled. It basically ruins them. So your body can't tell you what it needs, and that's why you end up eating junk food, and why you have a craving for junk food, because you want something that just tastes good. So those things that your body tells you that you need are there. They're not that, you know, that they're to. It's like, oh, you know, and it's so important that it's like, I can't get my head around people drinking fizzy pop. I know it's not alcohol, but like Diet Coke and stuff, it baffles me. I used to do it, so I don't know why it baffles me, because I'm having a go at myself in a way. But as I've become more trying to look after myself a bit better, little things like Diet Coke. I don't drink any fizzy drinks whatsoever. All I have in my fridge at the minute is fresh orange juice, water. Ironically, I think I still have a bottle of wine from fucking months ago that I've not drunk. And when I had a poker night the other week, some of my mates left some cans of lager in the fridge. But anyway, that's the point. Oh, and I've got coconut milk. Anyway, the fucking point is, I don't drink shite like Diet Coke or fizzy. Oh god, went for a walk yesterday, right? Sun was out. I didn't have anything specific to do. Stuck my headphones on and just went for a walk through town. I'll tell you a funny story, right? Like, I fucking walked down to the local street, and this is kind of related to all the Lorne stuff. And he had like, I don't know why I'm describing what I'm wearing, but I'll tell you anyway, just in case I might look like a fucking weirdo. But I had like jean shorts on, a black t-shirt, and a baseball cap on backwards to protect my head because I'm bald. It fucking burns. And I had my earphones, sorry. You know, I think I look like a normal guy. I don't think I look like a fucking weirdo or anything. Anyway, I walked to the bottom of the road, and there's two girls there, probably about 16-year-old. And I don't know how old they were, but they were quite sexualised in the way they were dressed, like really fucking skinny jeans, phone hanging out the back pocket of their ass, dead tight, really low cut tops. If their fathers had seen them, they'd have been like, what the fuck are you wearing? But you know what my immediate reaction is? My reaction was when I see them, I felt uncomfortable because I thought, right, they were walking to the place where I wanted to go. So I thought, I'll walk across the road so that it doesn't look weird. It was strange. The first thing that entered my head is, how is this going to look? So I crossed over the road. And then someone called me on the phone, and I answered the phone, and then I put the earphones back in, and then I carried on walking. And I didn't even notice, I'd forgot about them two girls, and as I'm walking down the road then, they turned round and looked worried. And it was like, shit, they think I'm following them. And I was like thinking, shit. And then all this, because I'm like involved in all the predator shit, it got into my mind. I'm thinking, they're going to fucking call the cops, and I had to walk in a completely opposite direction to where I was going, so I didn't get labelled a fucking, you're one of those weirdos. Do you know what I mean? I thought, what a bizarre situation that is. I didn't take it personally, but I think that it's so like prevalent on people's minds now. There's so many characters out there. For all they knew, I could have been a fucking weirdo. To be fair, I found it quite amusing, because I could just see it in their eyes as I'm walking, and I looked up at the same time they did, which looked even more suspicious because I'm on my phone and there's nobody else around. It was a relatively quiet road. I could see it. They were both in their eyes. They whispered to each other, what's he doing? I was like, oh, for fuck's sake. So I walked like 2 miles in the fucking other direction. Bit of a funny story. And I've lost track now. Anyway, I went into, speaking about kind of, looking after yourself with regard to drink and whatnot, I went into the garage after that incident happened. A local garage with a load of drinks in there. And I wanted a bottle of orange juice, like fresh orange juice, none of that shit stuff. Like pure, I only drink like pure orange juice, like proper natural stuff. And the fridges were loaded with I've never seen anything like it. It took me, I had to ask the guy behind the counter where a bottle of water was. And it was the smallest section. There was like Monster drinks, there was protein drinks, there was fizzy this, diet that, like all these amazing colours. It was amazing. I was thinking, wow, there's just nothing real here. And it's like, why would I want to put that in my body? Do you know what I mean? Listen, there's nothing that tastes better. Drinking ice cold Coke is beautiful, innit? But I would suggest that drinking ice cold fresh orange juice is even nicer. Bit more expensive, but priorities and all that. But it's the same with like beer. The more you drink, you put weight on, your metabolism changes, the calorie content. I was at like a family get together. There was a family funeral I had the other week. Oh, it was the week just gone actually. And there was some family I'd not seen there in a while. And there was like a wake after the funeral, and they were like, and I turned up in my car. I brought a couple of family members in the car, and we were at the house before the cars arrived and whatnot, the funeral cars. And some of the family that I don't see that often, they were like, why have you brought your car with you? And I said, well, so I can get home. And they said, well, you're not drinking? I said, no. And they were like disgusted with me. They thought I'd shunned them. I said, and I had to no. I said, I'll still stay out as long as everybody else is. I mean, I said, my dad's having a drink. He'll be fine. And I got like, it ended up being fine because I navigated it well. But their mentality was that I was shunning them because I wouldn't drink with them. They felt like I was being rude. I had to explain to them that I don't drink anymore. This was a family event where, listen, I'm not those people. We ended up having quite a nice time actually. But initially, there was 3 people that had a go at me. Not like insulted me, but basically turned the nose up at me and thought I was shunning them because I wasn't drinking. And one of my cousins got absolutely blind drunk. And if I'm being totally honest, he was, there was no aggression on his part whatsoever, but he turned into a prat. He turned into a complete prat, and the shit he was babbling on about I was like, fucking hell. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I understand why it's part of his grieving process. I'm just saying that's not me. But because I turned up and I was different to everybody else and I didn't want to drink and I got shunned. And that's what happens in society. You become I've found this now, you become a little bit of an outcast in a way because it's not the norm. And what happens is, when you're not the norm anymore, and you do, like, I tried going in the local bar a few times, not drinking. And you spend more time explaining why you're not drinking an alcoholic drink than actually doing anything. You try your best to explain to people without being preachy, and you go, I've decided, you can't say drinking shit or it's a mugs game because you're insulting people. So I just say it's not for me anymore. Just having a break from it and all that. But even if you put it that way, there's a group of people that would be offended because some people know they've got a problem, and if you come in and word it without throwing any kind of blame and say, oh, it's not for me anymore, people will think in their mind that you think you're superior to them and you're better than them. So they'll then start having digs at you because it reminds them that the problem that they've got, and they don't want to be reminded of that problem in an environment like that because everybody else is getting pissed, has got the same potential issues that they've got. They can't be reminded of that, so they have to attack in a way. They're in defense mode then, because it's like they're in the escaping from a dysfunctional relationship, or they've got issues that they've not resolved, and drinking is the solution to it. They know it's not right, and it's not the wisest way to deal with it. So if someone has an alternative and a different way of doing it in that environment, it's difficult for them to handle. That's not the case in all situations. Some people really don't give a fuck. Like, oh, nice one, pal. Shake your hand. You know what? Nice one. I wish I could be like that. But of course, it's life. You're always going to get people that have a problem with you. Even if you're the nicest guy on the entire planet, you'll always have enemies. Even if Jesus was to come, I'm not comparing. It's like the David Brent moment, this, isn't it? Where I can't imagine Jesus saying, oh no, my work here is done. You've got to spread the word. But what I mean is, let's just say fucking Jesus, right, it was the second coming. He would have enemies. That some people that say, what's that prat going on about? You know what I mean? It's always going to be the way. You've got to like, as hard as it is, you've got to smile. They're on their path and you're on yours, and just say, yeah, God bless you, thank you. As hard as it is. But anyway, so with regard to Lorne's drinking, because this was what it's about, trying to give life sort of stories about the situations that I've been through. I hope that some people can relate to it. Will he ever stop drinking? I don't think so. I know people that I know will never stop drinking. I just do. I hope I'm wrong. Would he be able to... would he be able to overcome these issues? I don't know. I don't think so. It's possible. But he needs that will, doesn't he? In that tough moment where you have to face up to the things that you've been avoiding. And it's horrible. That feeling of like isolation and helplessness has got to be overcome, because it won't go anywhere. You can use computer games, you can use relationships, you can use drugs, you can use alcohol. It's not going anywhere. It's got to be overcome. Fear exists for one purpose, and that's to be overcome. Because ultimately fear is an illusion, a fear of the unknown which hasn't happened yet. And it's important that we strive to be better than we are in any aspect of life, mine and what, work, just to try and be a better person. I try every day and fail sometimes. Sometimes, it's like at work. I'm in this new office, And if there's one thing I don't like, it's really loud people. People that are loud all the time. And there's a couple of loud people on the office, and I have to put earphones in and it pisses me off. But what I did was I scratched them off in my head as being dicks and just like fucking idiots. They're not fucking idiots. They're just loud people. And I thought, you know what? They're loud. When they're being loud, put my headphones in. Let them crack on. And I've made friends with those people now. And just because they're loud and annoying and obnoxious, you understand their life. And you understand why they're like they are. And they're just trying to survive. They're just trying to get through life how they can. You know, there's probably things that I do in the office that annoy the fuck out of them. I don't know what, because I generally keep myself to myself. But just little, that's just a tiny example of trying your best to become a slightly better person by, you know, like just loving your enemies. Not, do you understand what I mean? I hope that kind of little example didn't sound a bit stupid, but just minor things like that. If someone, you've got to understand as well how much it pisses me off. Like, it's 7 a.m, it's really like early, I'm a bit grumpy because I'm not a good morning person, and there's someone shouting and bawling from across the office. It's like, oh, it's torture for me. I like quiet and peace, and it's like, you can imagine how much it grates from him. I'm like, no, and I remain still, and I just smile, and then I'll go over to them and maybe say, you know, shut up, or, oh, how's it going in that, and if I've noticed as well, if I do it in a calm manner, they begin to become quieter themselves. Anyway, I prattled on for very fucking a long amount of time. I hope that you've got something out of it, and I hope that you've enjoyed it. Please let me know any comments that you have. Anything you think I was prattling on and preaching a little bit, any unfair judgments, because I know I've made judgments about certain groups of people and things like that. It's only through my own personal experience and things like that. You know, I think I've got a pretty good take on it because it affects some of the sort of profession I deal with. It affects that, you know, I deal with it on a professional level. I've had alcohol problems. I've had people who have, you know, I've done a lot of research on the subject. So I think I've got a pretty good take on it. So I hope you've got something out of it, guys. I really appreciate you listening, and I'll speak to you soon.